Congress has avoided yet again another government shutdown. What a relief to us all. Congressional leaders struck a last-minute spending deal, something that has never happened before, except the 500 times it has happened, Tuesday, that will fund the government through March 14th next year. The 1,500-page package this time around includes roughly $100 billion in disaster relief, with aid for communities damaged by hurricanes Milton and Helene. Also, $10 billion in economic assistance for farmers, as well as provisions focused on renewing expiring healthcare programs. It also includes provisions that restrict US investments in China.
House Speaker Mike Johnson, whose leadership could be in jeopardy over the bipartisan deal, defended the bill on Fox News Wednesday morning. Let's watch.
We decided, even though we don't normally like short-term stopgap funding measures, it made sense here. Instead of doing, Chuck Schumer and Biden spending for 2025, we pushed this decision into March. It'll be March 14th. So the feature there is that we'll have Republican-controlled Congress and Trump back in the White House, and we get to decide spending for 2025. So that was a good thing.
Incoming chief of DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, Elon Musk, did not hide his disdain for this legislation. He took to X and wrote, quote, "Ever seen a bigger piece of pork?" And he was not alone in that verdict. Lots of despairing from limited government conservative members of the Republican coalition, upset that this happened. Of course, this has happened, as you noted, a gazillion times. This is how the funding for the government now is just ritualistically approved, with short gap funding continuation type stuff that continues all this ugly stuff that Republicans ostensibly want to get rid of but never seem to manage to do so. I suppose you can defend it alongside the lines that the House Speaker just did, that why would we go out on a limb right now when a few weeks from now we'll control all of the government, so we might as well just wait till then. I guess that's fine, but the day will come when Republicans have to either admit they're not going to carry it through on this promise to actually cut the government, or they need to actually cut the government.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's such a pantomime, this stuff. I think that's why it's so frustrating to so many people. I mean, fair play to our colleagues who report on the goings-on Capitol Hill, and every period of time have to go through this ritual of like, oh, is the government going to shut down? Are the wheels going to drop off? Is this the apocalypse? And then there's a last-minute spending deal, and it's typically one that basically keeps spending at the same levels. There's a little bit of tinkering around the edges, and the play goes on regardless. I have to be honest, even though it's my job, I find it extraordinarily difficult to get excited about the minutiae of this stuff. As soon as somebody mentions...
You and me both, brother.
As soon as somebody mentions continuing resolution, I can feel my eyes glaze over. But, I'm sure there will be criticism from more fiscally conservative Republicans. The argument against that fiscal conservatism is, well, if the government shuts down, we get the blame for it, people lose vital services, etc. I'm sure there are lots of things to get excited about if that's your bag, but it's not mine.
Yeah, the government shutting down is not an exciting thing to happen, even for people of my ideological bent, because eventually they do approve the funding for it, and it's always going backwards. So even if you have employees or federal employees who get they get a paid vacation, because they end up always getting back pay. So it's not like, oh, this is how we're closing down the government. They end up getting paid for it anyway. So it's just them getting paid and not doing work. So we don't actually want that to happen. We want thoughtful, significant cuts to government, but just having it all shut down and only to restart maybe a few weeks later and have all those people paid anyway isn't saving us anything. It's just creating headaches.
And people who know more about the mechanics of this than I do say that even if there is a shutdown averted, the preparations for a shutdown are costly in and of themselves. There have to be contingency plans drawn up. There has to be all sorts of work put into the possibility of a shutdown, even if one is averted at the last moment. So, not that I'm so excited about fiscal conservatism as you are, Robby, but in terms of wastage of money, that is obviously part of the equation as well.
Yeah, that's not what we want to happen. Not the right way to do it. So, good to have the government not shut down, but if Speaker Johnson is making this promise here, okay, fine, one more chance, and then if he doesn't deliver this time, his leadership really should be in jeopardy. get a House Speaker. I mean, why did they even bother? I know this is the sentiment now that many Republicans feel, truly conservative, Trump-leaning ones. Why did we waste all this effort to switch McCarthy with someone else, only to get the exact same policies, approval for all sorts of spending projects that more Trump-leaning Republicans don't want to approve and ran against? So he'll have one more chance after this to actually achieve the things that the Republican coalition promised their supporters they were going to do, and if he doesn't, he should be tossed. And I think
that's the view that I think people like Chip Roy have,
yes,
the congressman
exactly.
from Texas, who, you know, to be fair to him, I think sincerely believes in the positions that he puts forward, which is one of the reasons that I think marks him out in Congress so much, because he actually genuinely believes that he's not somebody who can be easily bought off.
Yeah.
And so that's why there is that objection. I mean, it seems to me, looking at the politics of it, that one reason people like Johnson are so reluctant to drive that hard a line is the likelihood is it may not be able to pass in that sort of form. And then you do have a government shutdown, and Republicans typically get blamed for it because they have that internal struggle between the more hardline or hawkish fiscal conservatives and people who are more like, oh, well, we'll just keep the system running and rolling along. And so it is typically, I think, a tactic that has damaged Republicans or caused more internal strife for Republicans than it has for Democrats.
Yes, indeed. Stay with us. More Rising right after this.